I go on walks, I go snorkeling, I go kayaking. I meet the land every day as often as I can, check out how it's doing, meet my non-human kin. I draw pictures, I write poetry. I meet people in my community. I open my arms to the people that live here on the island and in turn allow them to open their arms to me.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sheree Mack, and I am so glad that you are here. This is our final episode before the summer break, but we're coming back in September with the special editions that are coming out in collaboration with Identity on Time and their Black Nature in Residence program. We will have 5 special episodes with each of the creatives that are in the 5 northern national parks, and I think we're just going to drop them all together, 5, so you can listen to them through September, October, November till the end of the year, but we're dropping them in September in coordination with the National Parks National Conference, which is taking place near the end of September, and also it's to be marking the coming to the near end of the Black Nature in Residence program. But you'll hear more about that come September. For now, this is an episode that I recorded, was in conversation with Nadia Shaikh. Oh my life. I was so excited to revisit this episode and edit it for you to be dropping today. And I say we should have more open, honest and frank conversations like this. I so appreciated what Nadia brought to the table. And this woman knows her stuff, man. You know, Nadia's still is in the nature conservation sector, but I definitely think she is more in her realm now when she works with Right to Roam and also set up the Raven Network, which were for people of colour within the nature conservation sector, which is the second least diverse sector in the UK after farmers. So there's not many farmers that are black or brown, and there's not many black and brown people in the nature conservation sector. But Nadia's in there, and she is making waves and ruffling feathers. And yeah, it was such a refreshing conversation, and I'm so excited to share it with you. And I'm not going to rabbit on like I usually do. I should say, let's get into this episode because it's juicy. It is so juicy. And, should I put in a disclaimer here or a swear word warning here? Yeah, there might be a swear word or two in here. So you've been warned. But yeah, okay, sit back or get out and get walking. But make sure you take us with you and listen to this conversation. Nadia Shaikh, take it away. To meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Well done, Dal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I seem to be giving Dal a call out, a shout out in every conversation.
I mean, she's a babe.
Isn't she just?
I know, and she talks so highly of you as well. So
the feeling is mutual. It is.
nice.
I've known her for years, and it's a few. But yeah, but we're not here to talk about Dal. We're
no.
About Nadia. Is
with
that
me?
That's your name, Nadia?
Yeah. It's however it comes. I'm happy with that. Our first name is fine. It's surname that people usually get confused with.
Oh,
it's Shaikh. It's Nadia Shaikh. But no, it's fine. And you're from the Northeast?
I am. I was born in Bradford.
Yeah.
Till about 10, and then brought up in the Northeast, as in Newcastle upon Tyne, in the small villages outside of the city. So in a small village that was called Newburn. So it's sort of like semi-rural, horses and sheep and cows in the field just next door. But when I was growing up, I wasn't looking that way. I was looking towards the city, the bright lights of Newcastle. But now I'm older. I'm still here, and I'm on the coast now.
Nice. Well, I'm from I'm from Jarrow, so just south of the Tyne.
Yes, Dal mentioned that yesterday in a voice message, and I'm thinking, this Nadia that I'm going to talk to is from but no, okay, we're going all ahead.
Okay, we're getting too ahead of ourselves.
Because
should we do it properly?
We can do, but we don't do anything really properly on the Sea Love podcast. We just go with the flow, man.
Nice.
We just want to
we're title.
Yeah, man. We just do it on our own terms. Because I was going to ask you, I notice I noticed a northern accent, but now I understand
it's real.
It's from Jarrow.
It's just like it comes and goes. It does come and go because it's been a really long time since I've lived in the Northeast. Like obviously my family's there and I still visit them, but I've like classic mixed race person, code switchy person. I like adapt to scenarios around me, so my accent just comes and goes.
I hear you. I totally hear you. And that's how we have to maneuver, negotiate, or hustle through this bloody minefield that we call society and life. So let's just start with the questions. I do go off on tangents sometimes, but I like to know where you're situated now and if you can see any nature outside your window or even in your room.
Well, I am incredibly lucky because as I look up above my computer screen, I am looking at about maybe 100 yards to the sea, and the sea is just there, and the Isles of Bute, the Clyde is just in front of me in the hills of Scotland. So I am in it.
You're up there in Scotland?
Yeah, so I'm on the Isle of Bute on the west coast of Scotland. And I can see the mainland. It's just the Clyde is in between me and the mainland.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it is. I mean, I've been up that neck of the woods. I love Scotland.
Mm,
For a while there, I was just drive through Northumberland straight to Scotland and just be there on the west coast, on the east coast, on the island. So I've been to Bute. Um,
nice.
so I'm very jealous, very jealous. Um, but yeah, so do you mind me asking, how do you end up there?
You get divorced.
Oh, oh, wow.
I love how excited you
Those
are about that.
didn't work out that way. I've obviously got it wrong. Carry
Well,
on.
do you know, obviously, like me, you are from the sea. You know, being near the sea is a big part of your life. And my husband, who I love, beautiful human being, we met, and he's from the Midlands, and slap bang in the Midlands in Tamworth. We lived for about 9.5 years, and I felt the whole time that I could never really put down roots because I wasn't near the sea. And we'd had plans to move to the sea. And then when actually we separated, I was like, oh, I can just go do it. And then I literally looked at a map of the UK and I was like, well, I've got no children. I can work from home. So I can go anywhere. And I was just literally looking at Rightmove of like where I could afford, where was near the sea, where wasn't flat, and where didn't have like proper xenophobic vibes, you know, like didn't have kind of like middle Englandy, don't come here, Tory vibes. And um it really did exclude quite to tick all of those boxes to find somewhere that I felt would be safe enough to be. And then I just saw this little island. I was like, Isle of Bute, never heard of that before. I thought, you know what, in for a penny, in for a pound, I can rent this house. And in 6 months' time, if I don't like it, I'll just go find somewhere else.
Oh,
And then within about 2 months, I was just like, yeah, I think I'll be here for forever. I absolutely love it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that is lovely. That is a transformational experience out of something
Mm.
that can be not a very good experience,
Yeah.
divorce, you know? And it actually have that bravery and that insight and foresight to say, I could go anywhere I wanted, you know?
Yeah.
It's like instead of sticking with what you knew, then you went
Yeah.
for it. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Props.
People keep telling me, like, oh, you're so brave. And I'm like, it felt reckless. You know, it didn't feel brave. It just felt like,
Yeah,
I don't
but you
know.
see, I see it as that you were choosing you,
Yeah, basically.
putting you first, and I am all for that after
Mm,
being socialized and conditioned into putting others before ourselves.
yeah,
So like yeah, more of that, more of that. So thank you.
it's all
So you
right.
can see the sea. Yeah, and there is some hills on Butte, isn't there?
Yeah, we don't have any mountains,
Yeah,
which is fine. It
yeah.
means that the weather's kind of mild, but I can see mountains up to the north, and we can see the Isle of Arran, which has got snow-capped mountains during the winter, which is really beautiful. But it is hilly and it's just got a bit of everything. It's lovely. It's got sandy beaches, turquoisey waters.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, so no mountains, but some good enough hills that you'll get out of breath.
Yeah. And I've been to the Isle of Arran as well. Another
Yeah,
that a lovely place. Lovely place
yeah.
to be well.
Very touristy though, Aaron, compared to here.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
But yeah. But it has to be done, man. It has to be done.
yeah.
You have to fill your pot. So let's move on. So yeah, as you says, you can actually work from home.
Uh-huh.
But what is it? And I do say, I'm not keen. I'm not keen. But on when we say, what do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's as if our value, well, yeah, it does. People do put value on us or judge us by what we do. Yeah. But I'm all for wanting to change it up and to be asking that question, who do you be? Who do you be?
Oh my God. Well, uh I be somebody who, you know, you say, what do I do? Like, I go on walks, I go snorkeling, I go kayaking, I meet the land
Mm,
every day as often as I can, check
mm,
out how it's doing, meet my non-human kin. I I draw pictures, I write poetry, I meet people in my community, I open my arms to the people that live here on the island, and in turn allow them to open their arms to me. Beyond that, I work in land justice activism. I work for the Right to Roam campaign in England because we have appalling land access in England, some of the worst in the world. And I also I worked in nature conservation for 14 years, and I found it in a lot of ways a beautiful place to be, but also a really problematic system to work in. And so I left that sector, but I still chair and nourish a group called the Raven Network, which is for people of colour who work in nature conservation across the whole sector of nature conservation, whether it's RSPB, Wildlife Trust, National Trust. And we work together to understand what decolonizing nature protection work in the UK looks like.
Oh gosh. All right. There's so much I want to unpick. I love that. But what I'm getting, the through thread for me is that connection. It's connection with the land, connection with others, but first and foremost, that connection with self. And connection with other species as well, who, I love that. I love that. So let's unpick that. Okay, so we've got this all right, we're going to come back to you personally and because that's part of your practice, meeting the land as it is and checking in and doing all that activity and just being with the land. So we're going to come back to that. But let's go to, you've said about that environmental justice, activism, right to roam. What the hell is that? For people who are listening.
What is it?
Like, because I go out my door and I walk. And I'm in role here. I go out my door and I walk anywhere, as a white person here.
Yeah.
yeah. But what you on about? Right to roam.
I know, right? It's mad. Do you know when something has been such the status quo for so long that it's really hard to explain it if you've never thought about it before, but you have to explain it in a way of how are you feeling? What do you feel? And it is really, really difficult. Imagine like I think about an animal in a zoo, right? Imagine like an orangutan born into a zoo or a macaw, a beautiful bird, parrot of the parrot species. And intuitively and naturally, that animal has evolved for millennia to have these vast expanses of landscape to explore as part of it is as to what it is to be that species, to what it is to be that. And then if you were to say to that orangutan in the zoo, does anything feel off to you? Like, does something feel off? Do you feel like you could be in a wider space? It would kind of be like, what do you mean? This is the whole world that I know. It would be a really difficult conversation to have to say, imagine a rainforest so big with no bounds and this like whole world and tapestry of mingling with different species, of you hearing birdsong and knowing birds, but also like other mammals that would be part of your life. Like it would just be like, what are you talking about, other mammals? Like it would be so confused. And so the right to roam is just a phrase, really. But it talks about the fundamental rights that we have as being from this land, on this land, to be able to explore it in a way that is intuitive, in a way that is playful, in a way that is free of boundaries and lines. Because only up until about 200 years ago, it's not a long time ago, we had this vast expanse of the countryside and all of its different identities and quirks and habitats and valleys and rivers and streams and woodlands, and we could just be in those spaces. And we wouldn't follow a footpath. We would just be like, oh, let's go down to that cool spot where there's shade and we can dip our feet in the stream. And on the way back, we'll go via that orchard because that's where we can grab an apple on the way home. And then maybe we'll take a shortcut through that little bit because that's going to get us back for dinner. We existed in this landscape as though we were part of it. And there was the Swedish Academy did some research in 2022 of 22 European countries in biodiversity, which is like the diversity of the different kinds of animals, insects, plants that we have, connectedness to nature, and land access. The UK came last in every single category. So like if I'm trying to describe it to somebody listening now as to what are you campaigning against, what even is campaigning, what are you saying, is that we are growing up in a system that is so prohibitive and so restrictive in our relationship to nature in a meaningful human way that we don't even know what's missing. We have access to only 8% of England. 8%. 92% of England is off limits. And so when you drive to work or you get the bus and you just see houses and houses and retail park and industrial estate and you're stuck in traffic and you're like, everywhere's just busy, it's full. It's not. 92% of England is off limits. There's not roads through it. You can't see the vast expanse of these landscapes. And it is not your right to set foot on it.
And you're saying England there, but are you including Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and you're as in the UK here, not just England? Yeah.
Yes. So the Right to Roam campaign that I work for is focusing on changing legislation in England. Scotland has a full right to roam. So Scotland already has it. So in 2003, sorry, the Scotland passed the Land Reform Act. And that gave everybody in Scotland the right to walk, to wild camp, to swim, to kayak, by default where they want. So a child growing up in Scotland knows that they might not own the land, but they have a fundamental right to care for nature and to love for nature and to sleep under the stars. That is a fundamental right, as long as they don't cause damage and there are restrictions such as hospitals, schools, quarries, like sensible areas that it makes sense. But otherwise, the fundamental right is a birthright, also for anyone in Scotland who travels there.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that. Because I wondered, I know that you can wild camp in Scotland, but I know you couldn't wild camp in the England. I wanted to know the difference. So who's got all this land?
Go on, Sheree, who do you think? Who do you think? Go on, punt a guess.
People who are white and landowners, maybe.
They're definitely majority white. So 50% of England is owned by less than 1% of the population, which is an incredible stat. So a third of England is still owned by the aristocracy. The aristocracy is a made-up thing. They are just rich people, landowners who were friends of the royal family once. And, when William the Conqueror kind of came here, England was pretty much divvied up into like his favorite 400 people, and the ancestral lineage of handing land onto land, that inheritance, the laws we have around inheritance make it really, really easy for families just to pass on land down the line. And so it is still held. It is the most expensive asset you can have, right? Land in England has only gone up in value. And if you can hold on to it, your landed wealth, and if you can, if you have tenant farmers that you can charge the money, or tenants on the land, they have to pay rent. Like, land is the best thing you can have if you have wealth and you want to invest it. So the majority of England is owned by very, very few people, often with aristocratic heritage, or there's a lot of new money, multimillionaires buying up land, and then they make fortunes from it. And the average person in the street, or just the commoner, which is what we are, we're born into debt. We'll forever be born into debt, because whilst it's our human right to have food, water, and housing, we're born into a land where we can't get that. So we're going to have to swap our bodies for labor to do that.
But the thing is that what you're describing here is, we say it's over there and it's happened over there, and it has happened over there, colonialism. Yeah. But what you're saying here, even though people are not looking at it that way or recognizing it that way, because we are fed the dream that we are free, that we have control over our lives. But what you're saying here is that the land is controlled by a few, and the rest of us are working that land or working for these few, and the profits are going into their pockets. But we are fed the story that we have got it cushy, we can buy whatever we want. That consumerism, so in a sense, for me, it's sounding like it is colonialism, but within these boundaries.
Yeah, totally. It's absolutely. I mean, where do you think that the English learned how to do colonialism really well? They learned it here first. They perfected it in Scotland. And then they transported it across the globe. So what
And
you do
Ireland,
is,
and
and
Ireland.
Ireland, and yeah, they did a really good job on Ireland as well. So what
Yeah.
happens is that what happened is that you divvy up the land in a feudal system
Mhm.
to very few powerful people who could have these little like fiefdoms where everyone that lived on their land had to pay them just all of a sudden overnight for some reason. Um, and then those estates and those kind of landowners grew and grew and grew. And what they did was they pushed the commoner off the land. When you push the commoner off the land, they can no longer feed themselves because they can't grow food. They can't graze their livestock. And so they have to do waged labor, whether they like it or not. And so there has been a constant extinguishing of like local cultural identity and cultural identities in England, particularly those most attacked were Gypsy, Romani travelers, the traveling community, because they represent I can go anywhere despite who owns the land. So of course they've always been demonized. But yeah, colonization happened here first. They pushed all of the commoners into urban areas, forced them into waged labor. And then they were like, we can do this better than this. So then they came to Scotland. The first thing they did in Scotland was, well, one of the first things that I guess the English did was they got rid of the bards. Bards are the storytellers. They're the knowledge holders. They're the cultural keepers of a community. If you take away the stories and the culture and the spiritualism from a community and you take away people's land, you destroy their soul. And that is how you colonize.
Yeah. And that the beauty of the bard is not just the stories, but they would travel around as well, taking those stories.
And
Oh,
magic.
you've just opened my eyes today again. It's like I mean, I'm doing this stuff about I'm reading decolonizing therapy. And it's how maybe the root of all of our trauma, all of our ills comes down to colonialism. And I've still got that mentality, oh yeah, over there. Yeah.
Over there.
But what you've just described and what is true, it's happened here. It happened here. So like, oh my gosh, that's a double whammy. It's a double.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is what makes it really dirty and horrible to be a person of color in the UK,
Yeah.
because there is this like deep intergenerational trauma of being in a culture here, which is like not really a culture. It's just like it's a lost people.
It is, and they don't recognize it. And I'm not getting on my high horse saying, oh, you should recognize and see
Yeah,
the
yeah,
farce and the fallacy that is passed off. It's like
yeah.
it's so anger. It's like I'm laughing, right? But I'm mad. I'm
Like
mad.
if only there was a thing, like like a baptism, like you could just get everyone to like jump into a bath and then
Yeah,
they go, "Oh, I see it."
yeah. That's totally because I've you've just took me in another baptism bath here because I thought my eyes were open, but they are now open again. It's
Yeah.
oh wow, thank
But
you.
I think, don't we have to do that, Sheree? Like, isn't that just going to have to be our state of being permanently
It is
in this culture?
it is our state of being, and it's tiring. It's so tiring. I've just sent this article around, and it's about autological expansion or something like that. It's about the white sprawl, and it's their idea. No, it's their belief, how they operate, that they have a right to be in every space, be that physical, geography, psychological, emotional, every space they believe they have a right to be in. And to be denied that, they always almost say it's like reverse racism. And like it's like how dare you let us be in that space? Language, the whole shebang. We do not have that audacity. We can never have that audacity
Mm-mm.
as people of color or people of the global majority. We're always aware of where we are and considering other people's feelings and
Mm.
of being in that space with them. We are hyper aware, and and we do things a lot of the time not to cause trouble, not to cause ripples, not to make anyone uncomfortable. And we do that for all of our lives. We do, till it gets to the point, and I'm at that point now, being a 52-year-old woman who's been around the block, yeah, at that point saying like, no, I do not give a hoot anymore. I'm taking my fugitive nature, creativity, and I'm running with it. I'm running with it on my own terms, but at the same time, I'm lingering and enjoying myself being with nature. I'm lingering, I'm connecting with people. I am putting my joy and pleasure foremost. And if that makes you comfortable, that's your problem.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it on anymore. Yeah. But because of all that, considering others, being nice to each other, switching roles and registers to fit in and be accepted, I am so tired that when it gets to this point of having that joy, it's like, oh my gosh, have I got the energy?
The resilience that you have to have in order to I mean, totally, like the resilience you have to have in order to be like, oh, do you know what? I'm not doing that for you anymore. Because so in one way you're empowering yourself, and then in the other way you're having to adopt something new. So for example, in the last 2 years, I've stopped feeling any shame or like embarrassment or guilt about using the term white person.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah, we couldn't do that.
No. So like now in front of my friends and stuff, I'm just like, oh yeah, there was this white guy. And like the problem is now I've got to deal with my friends being a bit like, I feel like you're angrier than you used to be. And I'm like, no. Do you know what I mean? Like, so now I'm having to deal with something else.
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. I got from, yeah, he doesn't listen to this, but from a husband of nearly 25 years, right? He got offended when I say, well, that's a bit like white fragility going on there. How dare you? How dare you put that? Just because you've learned the terminology, don't be going practicing on me. And I'm going, oh, defensive a bit. Maybe I've cut to the quick there. Maybe I've hit something. It's all right to say black woman, but we can't say white woman or white man, because then we're evening up the terms here.
Yeah. You want equality? I'm going to give you equality.
Well, I would rather have equity, but that's another.
Yeah, well, yeah, equity, indeed.
But but it's like, no. But I'm trying to explain to you how, when you're saying woman, you are actually just including a white woman there. You're not including me in there because you don't actually see me as a woman. Yeah, we're not at that point where I'm just a woman, or where I can actually identify with just being called a woman, because when it's used, and even mothers and stuff like that, there's always that in brackets, there's that white, it is in brackets, so let's just use it, man. Let's use it.
It's just useful. Just helps me have my conversation.
But again, it's on us, because you must be angry. Why does everything have to come down to race?
Why is it a political point?
Yeah, you got an issue, Sheree. You got a chip on your shoulder or something. Oh, another one. Why do you always have to be the victim, Sheree?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, but then it's kind of like, oh man, I'm just having a conversation. I'm actually not in a bad place at all. I'm just telling you a story. It's like, just come with me on this journey as I talk about this white man who did a thing.
Yeah.
Like, just let me be in this conversation. Follow me on this story.
No, because it hits up against something that they're not prepared to look at in themselves.
Yeah.
They're not prepared to look at themselves. All right, then. So we've done the right.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
We've done white supremacy.
Yeah.
Ish.
Oh, God. Please. Raven.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because where I'm coming in at, because I did some work with the National Trust, and I've also been talking to some people from the National Trust who were in and still are in the racial racial equity network, I think, what they set up there.
Is it race or no?
It might be race equity network, but I do know that they've got the group who've come together, who are the black and brown people of the National Trust. But then also there's an allies group of white people who are
there.
Oh, yes. So I did work with the white group so they could be better supporting the black and brown.
How were they?
Well,
did they
It was
pass?
a good experience. It was good. It was done through a reading group. So we're reading
Oh, nice.
X around Black nature,
Yeah.
and then addressing anti-racism stuff. And on the whole, it as individuals, they made moves and then they went forth and multiplied and went back into their own groups
Mm.
and started making waves there. But you got the odd,
No, yeah, I did. I used to work with this incredible woman who did work just like that. But at the beginning of every workday, she had to like get dinner ready and a good film set up so that when she got home, she could just like immediately have cared for herself because like she's like, I have to get rid of this like ick at the end of the day 'cause she's like, it's killing me. So like she gets all her best treats. Like when she gets home,
I
she's like,
totally get her. I mean, I started it with the Baltic, so I'd learned from them that I needed a support network around
right.
me to do that
Hmm.
work. And give them the due, the National Trust did give me some support
Hmm.
around it. But yeah, it's exposure.
Total exposure.
Yeah. So
Total
Raven
exposure.
Network.
Yeah, so the Raven Network. So about 4 years ago, during lockdown, the nature conservation sector is the second least diverse sector after farming. So you've got farmers, and then you've got people who do nature conservation work. Nature conservation work is all about securing habitats and species survival in this abysmal situation that we've got. We've got some of the worst I think we're like seventh worst in the world for biodiversity intactness, which means that in terms of abundance, we've lost over 70% of our birds. And so in terms of the number of things as well as the diversity of the things, so in terms of butterflies, mammals, wildflowers, fish, we've lost so many species. Um, so country's pretty bad. So nature conservation is all around trying to save these species and trying to save these habitats and landscapes, of which in the UK there are loads of different kinds of specialist habitats that we've got, each one with its own complement of different wildlife. So charities such as the Wildlife Trust, Bug Life, Plant Life, National Trust, RSPB, all do nature conservation work. And I worked for the RSPB for many years, and there's only ever a handful of like global majority individuals that work for these organizations. In some cases, there is only one for some of the smaller organizations. And so we came together to create a cross network group to do peer support, crucially because when it was locked down and then there was the killing of George Floyd, which sparked a new uprising in the UK of white awareness of racism. And I found that there was this very, very intense white response to the people of colour within organisations to be like, oh, we're so white, middle class. Like, actually, they didn't say middle class because they can acknowledge they're white now, but they can't acknowledge that they're middle class yet. But they would start just being like, oh my God, we are so white, we need to do something about this. And then so there was this huge surge in like EDI programs, like trying to tackle racism, trying to be like do more equality, diversity, inclusion, in which case like the magnifying glass of the very few people of color was just put on them. And there was a lot of like, hey, could you do this? Like, could we take your pictures and can we use them? And like, we want to be more inclusive. And it became grotesque. And so we formed the Raven Network. Initially, there was like 12 people. And now there's like 60 people in the network. It started just peer support. So we meet and share, and people can come to the meeting and just be like, so I went into this meeting and my manager said this. Am I just being weird or are they being funny with me? And then we can just be like, no, that doesn't sound right to me, and just validate people's feelings, because like the problem specifically with that sector and specifically with the charity sector when it comes to racism is that they are the furthest people that you will find from admitting that they are racist, because they are good and because they are doing good work and they are saving animals and they just like wildlife. So they are the most fragile people I've ever come across, but some of the nicest people I've ever met. And so it's impossible to work in that sector. And I found that the more I brought up stuff, I was once voted in the RSPB the most inspirational person in England. And the more I started talking about racism and decolonization, people just stopped contacting. Like I felt like my social capital plummeted in that organization. I was like, okay, so I've become a problem. And eventually I left anyway. But now we have this really powerful network, which has moved away from just doing peer support. And now we are working on, if we were to decolonize this sector, what would it look like? So, for example, like there is species hierarchy. So, the foundation of nature conservation and ecology is like through a Victorian natural history lens of studying species. These are the same men that would put animals in formaldehyde, that would put black babies in formaldehyde. These are the same people. That's the foundation of this sector, which is categorizing species and success on species, as opposed to happy, healthy population of all animals and plants in a healthy ecosystem that isn't being destroyed. So that the colonial thinking around how to save nature is a problem. And so we're starting to work on some of that. That was a lot of talking, sorry.
Oh no, it is music to my ears. Honestly, it's so, oh, this is why I love these conversations. Because it started in 2020 to keep the conversation going when I was alone during lockdown because it fills up my pot.
Yeah.
It makes me feel less alone. And what you're saying there is music to my ears, that it is happening. And it's awful to say, but because at this moment in time, I'm project coordinating Identity on Time Black Nature in Residence program.
Mhm.
Dal is the creative in residence for the Peak District National Park. It's national parks. They do have conservation angle, a protection of their unique species that are on their patch, sort of thing. And what you were saying about them being the most loveliest people, but then they're also the most far, far, far away from actually checking themselves because
Yeah.
they think they're doing good. I'm not saying they're not doing good. The defensiveness, the privilege that is coming up in relation to the creatives in residence, because they're brief from our organization, because it's a Black-led project, is to just be with nature. Yeah. We're not asking you to produce or have so many outcomes or engage with anyone. We just
APIs.
take this time,
Yeah.
to connect with yourself, with nature, and see what happens,
Nice.
and rest, breathe deeply. Yeah. So translating that into working with the parks and how it's being pushed back, centering the white person, but their way of seeing the world and not actually looking at it from another angle, not actually doing some work on themselves to see that I am white, I am getting advantages from whiteness. I don't know everything, and sometimes I'm not good. Sometimes I am bad.
Mm.
And what you were saying there about decolonizing the whole thing, it's like nobody is actually taking those steps back and getting to that underlying thing. It's all because of colonialism and
Yeah.
how these hierarchies were created. Race was created to justify the extraction, the exploitation of Black and brown bodies and the land and earth.
Yeah.
Nobody's going that far back. Nobody's.
No. And like, I'm assuming you do your work on the Duke of Northumberland's land, right? Duke of Northumberland is the biggest landowner in England.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
we used to
doesn't
live
really
on,
care.
used to live on his land in Newburn, man. It was all over.
He's a baddie. You know, I just found out he owns a bridge down in West Berkshire. It's a small bridge, and it's the easiest way to get from one village to another. And it's one of the only private road bridges in the country, and it's 60p to go across, and he makes £1 million a year.
Oh my God.
As well as being the biggest landlord, just £1 million a year for one small bridge that he owns. Anyway, that's just but yeah, no, totally like it is just a hard place to be in, and to create these really beautiful healing spaces in nature,
That's it.
which are non-threatening, non-violent,
Yes.
safe spaces, to
Yeah.
justify to even get the money for that
Oh
kind of
my
thing
God.
is
Oh my God. But they're still wanting to come up on it. we're organizing it and saying it's for people of the global majority. And what does that mean? So we can't come.
No,
But
why can't we come?
why can't we come? And
Can you
that
take some pictures? Can you take some video footage? What, of people being
no,
really vulnerable
no,
in nature? Yeah,
no,
okay.
no. Can we come? Can we come? Okay, we won't be involved in the workshop. Can we just come along and take some pictures? Or maybe even vlog with them? It's like, what? And then when you bring it up, as you say, you went down in favor. I write these emails, being diplomatic, but bringing up this is racist. No reply.
Yeah.
No.
But you know that that email's been shared. Oh, you know that that's been sent around going, can you believe this? What do you think she meant? Like, you know it.
Crickets, man. Crickets. And I'm thinking, well, you don't really want to change or make a difference or move forward because you're not even engaging with the conversation. This is a prime example. Let's talk about it. And I do it in lovely terms when I really just want to say, fuck off.
Yeah, I know. So do I. I definitely try and send as nice emails as possible, but I don't. I've had a few people, because I lead the Raven Network, I get quite a lot of emails from white organizations. I mean, just saying, I might as well just say nature conservation organizations because they are white, but saying, hey, we've got this job advert and we really want to attract hard to reach people. Could you share it with your network? And I'm like, and like we have a running joke within the network. I was like, guys, could you stop being so hard to reach? Because I'm getting all of these emails. But then maybe we need a word that isn't racism. Like maybe we need to make a new word for the racism that people don't get that's racism, to be like, oh, so what you're doing now is, I don't know.
No, but they wouldn't accept it because it'd be coming from our mouth.
Yeah, that's true.
If it was coming from Robin DiAngelo's mouth,
Yeah.
what
It'd
I
be
mean?
like, oh, okay. All right,
Oh,
I'm
yeah, we're
listening.
paying attention.
All right, TED Talk, give me. Could you come and run a workshop?
It's so good to get this off our chest. But let's go. We joke, but it is harmful. It
Yes,
is
so harmful.
it is traumatic. We do carry it around us. So let's get to those practices. What practices do you have in place that are supportive for you, that are healing for you, that brings you joy?
Oh, so many. It is, do you know when sometimes the most profound things are the most simple things?
Yeah.
Like getting up as early as I can and going out. If
Mm.
I can squeeze in some outdoor time before work, whether it's just a half an hour walk, a 20-minute walk, it really is actually magic. I am also extraordinarily privileged that jumping in the sea at the end of the road, what, like I don't swim, like I get in and I get out. Um, those days are the best days when my mind feels at ease. I have started meditating um every morning. I only started like last month. And I can only last about 10 seconds, but trying it helps. Like it makes me go, well, at least I tried. But generally just like going out in nature, noticing the seasons change. Like this week, like cuckoos are back. Cuckoos are one of the migratory birds that come from Africa every spring. And I'm like, the all week I've been going out trying to listen to one, like having a folk, because I know my non-human kin really well. I know when they're going to be here, what the weather's kind of like. I'm like, this feels like the kind of day cuckoos would arrive. Knowing to look for those seasonal things, whether it's the hawthorn blossom, whether it's the blackbird song, or that kind of clock, that natural clock that becomes part of my own rhythm, it grounds me. And so, like, any day now, the swifts will be back and I'll cry my eyes out, and it's just like that grounds me more than anything, I think.
I love that. I love that you're going with nature seasonal clock rather than colonial clock time.
Oh yeah, native time every step of the way.
So how did you get into this? How did you, I mean, for me, I say that I come to nature late, but
Mm.
um I don't think I have. I mean, when I was a kid, I would always like to go out walking by myself and lie in green fields and just look at the clouds, or kick leaves, So it's only at later that I think I'm more aware that I do have a connection with nature. But I feel like I have to learn the names, learn the terms and all that jazz.
Well, you don't, you don't have to learn. It's really interesting, isn't it, about
Mhm,
like naming things.
mhm,
I think there are thousands of local, like colloquial terms for nature that would exist in the Northeast, for example. There would be different versions of names, but everything's been homogenized. I think like I think it's never too late for anybody to start getting to know the things around you. And only once you've got to know it, then learn the name. Observe it for a while and be like, all right, I think I'm ready to learn your name, because learn it how you know it first, whether it's blackbird or robin. Just get to know the thing that you always see in the same bush and you think, oh, I'm just going to keep looking. And one day you'll be able to open the book and go, that's it. But if you go out and like with the book, see something you've never seen before and you're doing this, you'll be like, you won't be able to find it. But I think I grew up in Jarrow, and I remember like um we spent a lot of time on South Shields on the beach. So that was probably like the most nature. And we went to the beach just for like ice cream and stuff. My family are not an outdoorsy family. Um, my dad is from Pakistan, and just like outdoor pursuits weren't really his thing. My mum's from a very working class family. The outdoors has become a place for recreation for the white middle classes. Like the outdoors in this country is very much you go and do recreation. You don't just be, right? You're saying, who do you be? You don't just be in nature. You have to hike. Like we're already exhausted, so why am I hiking? Um, I remember formative experiences just in the backyard of our terrace house, like seeing a bucket of water that got stagnant, and then there'd be midge larvae. And I remember just being like a tiny little child, just going, there are fish in this, but like, how did fish get in this bucket? And then, like, do you remember there's these tiny little things like red mites that you see on brick walls, these tiny little red mites. I remember just staring at brick walls, just going, what are these? Like, in a very urban environment, noticing like stuff that just always drew me in. And like then going to the beach and like poking jellyfish and like I guess even in areas where there wasn't a lot of nature, whatever nature there was the thing that I wanted to spend time with. And then I guess I got cool into boys and stuff. So like I don't know, I probably like stopped caring about nature for a bit of time, and then immediately back to it again. I think when I kind of got to university, I was like, oh, hang on a minute, I really like bird watching. So I'm just going to carry on bird watching. So I didn't go very far without my binoculars most of the time. Because it's the only thing in a world that makes no sense. I've got quite a complex family history. A lot of adults lie to you. A lot of adults don't tell you the truth about a lot of things. And as young people, you grow up, particularly as a mixed race person, where neither of your parents understand your race, and parents that maybe tell you lies. And particularly when you are a feeling person, the society doesn't make sense. When the world doesn't make sense to you, it's really horrible. And you can't even put your finger on why. Nature was the thing that made the most sense. Like the blackbird is always the blackbird, even if the adults lie, or even if like I see in Greenpeace magazines people killing whales and none of it makes sense. Like, why are adults doing this? Why are we cutting down the rainforest? Why are we doing this? I think nature was the thing that just made sense to me. Um, I'm the only one in my family that likes wildlife. Everyone else just doesn't really care.
Thank you. Nadia, it's been poetry, man. It's been
Oh,
speaking to you. It's been, honestly, it's been a joy and it's been a privilege. And I'm so excited to share this conversation with others, because this is how I see it. It's like it's just us two having a conversation, and then later on we share it with others. It's like,
nice. Which no one really gets to do unless you're eavesdropping.
exactly. But that's what people have said. Sometimes I'm listening to this podcast and it's just like we're eavesdropping on a conversation. And that's the way it should be, because what we talk about is important stuff that you wouldn't hear anywhere else, basically.
Mm.
And I'm so happy and honored that so many wonderful people come on and do speak to me, because you don't have to do it, but you did it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. I honestly forgot a little bit we were recording
Me
a
too. For
podcast.
me too. But for me, that's important, because there's so many spaces and places where we do put on a performance, or we do put on a face, or we do curtail ourselves and put ourselves in a box and conform and try and be manageable.
Manageable. Oh, even the word feels like
But you know what
sludge.
I mean? But like
Yeah.
life's not like that. It's
No.
messy, and it's like sometimes we can get ugly. And I own it. I own
Yeah.
it. Because like I'm just a flawed human being. And I love that. And I love that. So thank you for
That's okay.
meeting me at this.
Yes. Can I do a tiny plug?
Yes, please. Yes, yes.
Well, Dal will have told you. She's just been in a book with me. Is she
Oh,
talking?
yes. Yes. Tell us about the book.
So we've just released a book called Wild Service, 13 different authors. It pulls on in from Indigenous knowledge to paint a picture for people in the UK to say, we can once again learn from nature and live with it. All is not lost. We are not a horrific species by default. We have a right to love nature. We have a right to care for nature. And it suggests through 13 chapters with 13 different authors, of which Dal, who is an incredible writer and poet, has written one of the chapters on healing, which is heartbreakingly beautiful. So each of the chapters looks at our relationship with nature from a different angle. My chapter is called Recommoning, and it's about how the countryside is empty of people. And once again, people can live back. We should be inviting people back in the countryside once again to live alongside nature as it used to be.
So where can we get our hands on this
I
book?
know it, well, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it is just, I mean, go to your, get it from your local bookshop. Don't get it from Amazon.
Independent bookseller. Yeah.
Independent bookseller. There is something called like bookshop.org or something. I'm not sure.
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
There is.
that's it.
I
Yeah.
use Hive a lot.
There you go.
We've also got one in Whitley Bay called The Bound, which is really, really lovely to go in. It's local, and they're even having live writers in there reading.
Nice.
But did you go to the launch in London?
I did. Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, I was. I'm exhausted. London is exhausting.
Oh, in it just used to
But me and Dal had a funny time walking through the streets of London with a whole tree. So what the name of the book called Wild Service is a tree, a wild service tree. It produces beautiful fruit that tastes like sweets. And landowners back in the day were advised to remove the tree from the hedgerow so that the commoners couldn't feed themselves. So it's actually quite a rare tree now, because a lot of really the landowners really did make it hard for people to live off the land, so they were forced into wage labor. So the wild service tree is a symbol of that resistance.
And I love that, the name. I love,
to be in service.
Yeah. Well, that's right. For me, I think that's why I'm on earth here, to be in service of others.
Yeah,
and
not helping them as though they're broken. Not fixing them.
No, not even like that. But I think, again, I think that comes from a generational thing, because as a Black woman, we are here just to serve other people,
Yeah.
and in that, that makes us feel better.
Yeah.
That's then. So I'm trying to work it as not that way, because
yeah, but you are in wild service, the truest form of service, in reciprocity.
Yes. Oh my God. Always. Yeah.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much for having me then.
Thank you so much for coming on. Lovely.
Hello,